A while ago, I went to the grocery store. I found myself again right in front of the deli counter. I had my trusty number in hand. I was waiting for my turn. I was right in front of the turkey breast sandwich meat. Just to the side of me, there was a young family, a mother, her 2 children. The one daughter was, I guess, around 8 or 9 years of age. She was helping Mom shop as I looked at the ham. In the grocery cart was a little 4-year-old daughter. She wasn't sitting in the seat. She was standing up in the cart. Now, I don't know about you, but I get queasy when I see that happening. She was balanced. It looked like she wasn't in any trouble, but I just had to watch. So, with one eye, I was looking at the turkey breast sandwich meat. The other eye, I was looking at this little 4-year-old girl. I had front row seats to what happened next. The little girl spoke. Mommy, that high-pitched, squeaky voice little kids can have. The mom didn't hear her. Or, that selective hearing. That could be because she and the other daughter were shopping after all. And so the little girl, in a couple of seconds, she decided she needed to up the game a little bit. Mommy, a little bit louder. I looked over, I didn't notice any crisis unfolding, any dramatic problems that were happening. She just was there. But still no response from the mom. So then, it was time. Mommy! And that got the mom's attention. And what unfolded next was fascinating. The mom turned around and she leaned in towards the daughter a little bit. She wasn't that tall. And with this little 4-year-old who likewise leaned a little bit in towards the mom, they were basically eyeball to eyeball. And at that time, the little girl reached out her arms. Just reached out her arms. Somehow, I don't think they could have choreographed this. I don't think they could have planned this. But the mom's face basically ended up right in the daughter's hands. And the little girl just kind of closed gently and cradled her mother's head, her face, and looked right into her and said, Mommy, I love you. That was it. Just this gentle, amazingly, lovingly passage connection between the mom and her daughter. I just kind of stood there, soaked it all in. You could see the mother who, I'm sure she needed to get in and out of the grocery store. She was in a hurry, and she just kind of melted. She didn't try to back up. She didn't try to get away. She just allowed her little 4-year-old daughter to hold her face. I tried not to stare, but how can you not stare at something like that? But then it hit me. This was the image for me of the peacemaker reaching out and making a connection. We're talking about the Beatitudes today, and if you remember, being the peacemaker is one of them. Now, the Beatitudes, we've apparently a lot of times forgotten what they really mean and what they're about. We often look at them and we go through the list. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are the peacemakers. It goes down through the list. And somewhere along the line, it seems like we decided this is a glorious to-do list. That this is what we need to do. This is what we need to figure out. And if you pay attention to the literal words, it looks like that's a pretty good deal. If somehow, if some way you can manage to do all these things, or at least some of them, somehow pull it off, pretty good benefits, folks. You get to inherit the kingdom of heaven. You get to inherit the earth. You will be comforted. You will be filled. You will be called the children of God. It's pretty good stuff. A number of years ago, I came across the writings by Walter Brueggemann. Walter Brueggemann is a United Church of Christ theologian, scholar, writer, educator. He travels all over the place at this point after teaching at seminaries, and he just speaks and people listen. He's very, very well respected. A number of years ago, I came across his writing where he kind of challenged the traditional understanding of the Beatitudes. He said that no, they're not a sacred to-do list with benefits. It's instead an understanding of Jesus sharing who the people are, who they were already, who God had created them, given them this inherent understanding and these gifts and talents. This is who they were already. Now, if you go down, you'll see in the next sections where Matthew talks about Jesus telling the people that you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. It's not like someday you will be. Maybe if you get lucky this might happen, but you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. This is who you already are. Now, the payoff, if you will, there's still great benefits by being who we are. If you understand the meaning of peace, it talks about how our soul is filled. Our soul is whole. Our soul is at peace. That's what happens when we no longer have to pretend we're somebody else, but instead when we decide that we're going to be the way that God has created us to be and just live into who we already are. Our soul gets it, and we are at peace. But this peacemaker part, we could talk about all of them, but we'd be here a long time. But this peacemaker part, how powerful it is. Because number one, it sounds just like us. It really does. I celebrate and when we share our joys and sorrows and we hear some of the ways, especially that we've reached out to people. We get it, don't we? We reach out. And what a difference that makes. Because being the peacemaker, if you understand just the word itself, peacemaker, not peace observer, not peace wisher, not peace, well, if it happens, that's going to be lovely and we'll be happy. But no, peacemaker. It's a very active approach. It's a very intentional initiating what it means to bring peace. And peace, it's not just, of course, the absence of violence. Peace is that sense of bringing wholeness to ourselves and others about who we are. It's serious business. It's delightful business, but it's something that takes energy. It's something that takes intentionality. It's something that we really have to strive to do, even though it's our natural inclination. We have to reach out because we understand how important it is. Let me tell you about Doris. Doris was my mother-in-law, Nancy's mother. She passed away a number of years ago, but I remember the story about how she grew up. You see, bless her heart, she was left-handed. Do you remember what happened not too many years ago? Some are nodding their heads. You go to school, and you sit in the desk, and there's the seat, and then to the side, the right part, kind of the shelf, comes out, goes onto the desk top. Sometimes underneath that desk top was a compartment. You could come put your supplies, your books, You'd close the lid on the desk, and then if you were right-handed, you had a wonderful little place to put your elbow, and you could just draw, scribble, whatever you needed to do. It was easy. If you were left-handed, you talk about having to do contortions to try to figure out how to find a way that you could rest your arm and write. It was misery. But more than that, there was a statement made every day. We called her Meemaw, went to school. She was reminded that she wasn't normal. She was reminded that there was something wrong with her every single day. Because you know what they did? They decided they had a fix for this. They teach her how to write right-handed. Because being left-handed was just wrong. We're going to fix you. Now, that may not seem like a tremendously traumatic experience, but if you were left-handed, again, every day you went to school, you would be reminded that you were strange. And for a little kid trying to figure out who she was in a world and how she fit in, and every day being told, you don't fit in, but we can fix you. Now magnify that. Magnify that to, you might call it some of the bigger issues, if you will. Think how we ostracize people today. Think how we marginalize people today. Minimize them. Tell them, in essence, they aren't normal. They're strange. It can go to skin color. It can go to sexual orientation. It can go to your ethnic background. It can go to whether you're an American Indian. It can go to whether you're male, female, tall, short. Take your pick. It's called the dominant culture that seems like they have the right to decide who is normal and who isn't. And they try their very best to do this, where they define who is right and who is strange, who is okay and who needs to be fixed. Now, it works both ways, but this dominant culture often has this in mind that they get to make the rules for the game. If you happen to be a young man, say about 6'12", did you get that? That's 7 feet. But, and still growing, you're not normal. You are strange. Unless you happen to have a little bit of athletic ability. In that case, you have people drooling over your potential to get this little round ball and be able to learn how to bounce it around off the floor and throw it up in the air and go through this little hoop. And ooh, you become very popular. And someday you'll probably get a scholarship and get rewarded for that. Someday you might even get a professional contract and really get rewarded for that. This dominant culture sometimes thinks they get to decide who is special in a rewarding way, who gets the benefits, or who is strange and we just need to ignore them, minimize them, not worry about them. You see, it really is so very important because that's what the peacemaker does. It reaches out to these people, to these situations where people are being ostracized, people are being minimized, people are being told, you don't count. And we can be fine without you. The dominant culture. The peacemaker is that voice, those hands that dare to make a difference, that dare to challenge the status quo, that dare to be as they have been created to be. You see, this reaching out really is very natural, very normal. If you're walking down the street and somebody's close to you and they stumble, what do? You don't sit back and say, I wonder how many times they're going to bounce off the pavement. You know the first thing you do? You reach out. You reach out and see if there's some way you can catch their fall, maybe prevent a fall. Without even thinking about it, that's what you do. That's our natural inclination. That's exactly what Jesus was telling us. This is who we are. The peacemaker, the ones who reach out. But as I was thinking more about this little 4-year-old and her mom, how natural that was when she just reached out and her and her mom connected and they had a love feast for a couple of moments. How natural that was, but it dawned upon me. How did she figure out how to do that? Who gave her permission to actually do something like that? And I started realizing that she probably had seen it done. Kids are like sponges, aren't they? They are just sponges. What they see, they want to duplicate. What they hear, they want to say. This little girl probably saw somebody reach out. In a very loving way, in a very caring way. Maybe it was her own mom who would reach out to her and embrace her and hug her. Maybe when she was happy, maybe when she was sad, or maybe she saw somebody do that to her mom. Somehow, someway, this little girl had seen this modeled for her, seen it happen. And she'd maybe heard these words, "I love you," about a very caring proclamation of this connection that had great depth and great meaning. I love you. Somehow this little girl had seen it done. And because that was her natural inclination, that's what she was going to do. We know this mother, though, even at that, I don't think she invented reaching out. I don't think she created being a peacemaker. Neither did Jesus as he gathered the people and reminded them of who they were and who they are. I don't think he invented reaching out to others. I don't think he invented being the peacemaker. These had been seen by somebody else. They had been reached out to and cared for. Well, we don't have to invent what that means either, do we? Because in our lives, there have been those who reached out to us. There have been those who embraced us. In many ways, we're that peacemaker. Maybe when we didn't feel right. Maybe when we were empty. Maybe when we had sorrow. Maybe when we needed somebody to affirm that we were okay and we were loved. Somebody did that for us. It's not about inventing as much as passing it along. Because I think that's what we do. We, as we have received these gifts, now we have the privilege, and yes, the inherent nature to reach out ourselves and be that peacemaker and make a difference. Let us give thanks this day to those who reached out to us so that we now can reach out to others. Let us be those peacemakers that make a difference in all lives. Let it be.